Alright everyone, alright, settle down, let's get started. For today's lesson, we're going to be designing our very own church. First question, are there any types of people you wouldn't want to attend our church? Serial killers, my parents, black people. I wish I was allowed to drink. The job of a youth pastor or student minister is an interesting one. Each church will give you a slightly different description of the role, but basically it's your job to get a bunch of middle and high schooler students to sit down and shut up long enough so you can try and save their eternal souls from the blazing fires of hell. So yeah, no pressure. My name's Jonathan, how's it going? I've worked as a youth pastor for about 2 years now, and I thought it'd be fun to talk about some of my experiences in the field, especially since I haven't seen many videos on the subject, especially in the realm of comedy. Alright folks, you've been a lovely audience, let's end off with a zinger. Jesus said, "That's not a church, that's my wife." It gets me every time. You'd all get it if you weren't sinners. So anyways, grab your popcorn, grab your holy water, let's get started. If you've ever been in a church setting before, then you'd know that there tends to be a large divide between the young people and the old people. Now, I don't say this to insult either group, but I think you'll agree that a person's age tends to influence a lot of their tastes and preferences. I say this because I've taught lessons for both groups of people, and depending on whether I'm preaching for the youngins or the oldens, my sermons are going to have a very different feel and style to them. Does your sermon reference Fortnite? Do you attempt to use a Thanos meme to describe how Jesus was both fully God and fully man? If so, then you're probably preaching to students. Make sure you include lots of funny pictures, otherwise they'll get bored and start doing drugs. Do you get blank expressions whenever you mention the internet? Is a fax machine still a valid form of communication? Are golly geez and holy crap considered swear words? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then you're probably preaching to old people. And if you want to make sure they don't fall asleep on ya, try referencing a television show that came out before you were even born. Gilligan's Island? When a church hires a youth pastor, they usually try and get someone who's closer in age to the students. This is so they can be relatable. Sure, you want someone who's good at teaching the Bible, but they also need to be familiar enough with modern culture where they don't start calling every single new game console a Nintendo. It also helps if you're young enough in age to understand the different kinds of struggles your students are dealing with. A 70-year-old man probably has no clue about cyberbullying or internet pornography, and a youth pastor that's aware of these things can more effectively help their students. However, there does still need to be some level of professionalism between you and your students. There is a risk of becoming too relatable, and in your quest to be cool and hip, you end up becoming one of the guys. What up, my broskies? I just smoked like a gallon of cocaine in the parking lot. Up top. Aren't you supposed to teach us not to do that? YOLO, my dudes. A lock-in, in case you're unaware, is more or less a Christian sleepover. All the students from your church come spend the night in the building, and it's your job as the youth pastor to make sure that none of them are having sex at 3 a.m. I don't like lock-ins very much. Despite this, lock-ins are usually a great way to invite new students to your church. It's the cool way to boost church attendance. Hey bro, you want to visit my church? Heck no bro, church is lame. Well, what if I told you we could bring our sleeping bags? Take me there right now. There's an old saying about teaching from the Bible. The message stays the same, but the way it's presented must change. This actually makes a lot of sense. Back in the 1700s, for example, Quaker sermons used to last up to 3 hours. 3 hours! That's insane! If pastors today don't let their congregations out by 12:15, there are literal riots in the streets. Probably my biggest struggle as a youth pastor has been finding a way to keep my students interested in what I'm teaching them. Sure, they know that it's important to learn about the Bible, but then again, no pictures. Sorry, God, my hands are tied. A lot of the time, I just bribe my students with food or video games, but I do occasionally try and get creative. There was this one time I set up a mock court trial, and I gave each student a controversial topic they had to research and then defend. All my students seemed really interested in the idea, well, at least up until the week of the trial, and that's when everyone told me they had forgotten to research their topics. Oh well, A for effort, I guess. If your students don't like your youth pastor, then you've obviously made the wrong hire. You gotta make sure the YP is someone the kids can get along with. It needs to be someone smart, funny, kind, charismatic, and just a tad bit sexy. In other words, me. The other week I asked my students what their first impressions of me had been like. One of my students said they liked me because I knew about Skyrim. Another said they liked the fact that I was occasionally funny. And another even said they just didn't like me. Now honestly, I was a little bit discouraged by some of these beige responses when one of my students raised their hand and just said the nicest thing. They said they'd been impressed by my deep biblical knowledge and my ability to be able to so effectively communicate it to all these different students of various backgrounds and nationalities and Nah, I'm just kidding. They just like the fact that I brought pizza every week.